Randy Bellous is a dear, dear friend. Janina is now becoming a friend. She was in the festival before. David Stump, I'm just meeting, but I'm sure he'll be a friend. And then David is a friend through a friend. The point is, you're here to network. Meet these people, meet the people next to you, because that's what it's all about. If you're going to stay in this business, you're going to bump into them again. So enjoy this fantastic array of friends and talent.
Thank you, Susan. Good intro. Thanks. Hello, everyone. How are you?
Yeah! Party now.
I always love it when someone introduces me as pretty as she is. What can I say? So today, what we're going to be doing for the next hour is talking about the who, what, why, and how of new media. So I think the best way to do this is we're going to be discussing a handful of things. And the way it's broken down is, one, how has the paradigm shift to digital affect content creation? And then who are the ultimate winners, the studios, the consumers, or the filmmakers? And then what's next? How do we get your story out there? And I know that there's probably everyone here has a fabulous script. It's probably better than anyone else's, but what do we do with it from there in the new era of doing video or film or digital? The interesting thing is I think that if we had this conversation 6 months ago or a year ago, it wouldn't be pertinent to today. It's just, as one person once told me, that I'm going to tell you all about financing for films, and tomorrow it will be a history lesson because it'll change that fast. So this is something that's current with these folks here, and I want to introduce you to them. First of all is Janina Gavankar, to my left. And here's what I have for her. Since Janina's music video screened at last year's New Media Film Festival, Janina has acted in several projects, including The Vampire Diaries, Think Like a Man 2, The White Orchard, and Love is Dead. Other past acting credits include The League, True Blood, Arrow, The L Word. She's back to share new media navigating tips. So please give her a hand. Next is David Uslan. David Uslan, a graduate of Indiana University. David's productions include Batman Begins, The Dark Knight Rises, Constantine, Catwoman, National Treasure, The Spirit, the upcoming Doc Savage, and many more. He is currently Vice President of Development for both Bat Film Productions and Branded Entertainment. He's on the end. If you would give him a call, a big applaud. Our last panelist today is David Stump. He is a director of photography. David Stump, ASC, has worked on numerous motion pictures as a director of photography, visual effects director of photography, visual effects supervisor, and a stereographer, earning an Emmy Award and Academy Award for Scientific and Technical Achievement, as well as International Cinematography Guild Awards. His credits include such high-profile projects as The Last Stand, Quantum of Silence, Flight Plan, Fantastic Four, X-Men 1 and 2, Batman Forever, Free Willy, and many others. Please give him a hand. And as I turn off my phone, we're going to start with how has the paradigm shift digital affected content creation. And I think the best way to do this, I'm going to start at the end with David, since there's two Davids here. We'll start with you and see what we can come up with and move right on over. David.
So my particular background is primarily dealing with the publishing industry, content that's based off of source material, historic IP like the Batman IP and many others. The shift in the last couple years, I think, has been a massive benefit to creators, the up-and-coming creators, the writers, the people who don't have the access to massive publishing companies and studios and don't already have an established foot kind of in the door already. And what interests me right now is all of the great independent content coming out of the publishing space, specifically although, we see this in all areas of our business. But the ability to get your content out there without a major entity, a studio or a publishing company behind you, utilizing things like everything from the ebook stores out there and independently publishing through Apple and Amazon and Nook, through digital sites like, I don't know, Funny or Die, or through Machinima, or through all these places that independent creators can push their content through. I think it's great. It's a great way to get eyeballs on your content and start to amass a fan base early on, and that's what excites me. So I love where this industry is going, how independent creators can take advantage of the space more so than they ever have before, and by doing it, producers like myself and others get to see content that we would never have seen before in the past, and that's what I love seeing.
David.
I agree with all of that, and I think I sort of have to confess I've been around the business long enough to have seen this this shift in paradigm from the 5,000-foot view. And I started in a time when, if you were a filmmaker, you pretty much came up always working for someone else, always expressing someone else's vision. And for me, the biggest change in paradigm has been that now anyone has access to the ability not only to work for someone else and work on a big production, but to express themselves at the same time in their own media, in their own productions. And I suppose in the end that's probably good news and bad news for the big studios, because the good news is I've seen a lot of independent films get picked up and succeed by major studios, and it's happening on an increasingly more frequent basis. But at the same time, the bad news is that the buyers for the studios have to watch so much stuff now to find that kernel of joy in all of the haystack.
Janina.
Thank you.
We're going to share. So the word digital is vague. At this point, we need more vocabulary words, and we can all make them together. Because I haven't been in the business long enough to see the change to digital, but everything's digital now. I mean, we're shooting everything in a different way. It's just how you are receiving the content. And even your feed, your network feed is, it's a digital service. So let's find some more vocabulary words to get more specific. Agree, it has they're a little screwed now, because everybody gets to make what they want, and that's fantastic. You can make it the way you want. I was just having a conversation with a very good friend of mine who was talking about, she was saying, there's a bit of an epidemic in this town right now. There are so many platforms and so many shows that there are not enough showrunners. And these people are scrambling to find people who know how to keep the trains just running on time to get through their day. And I kind of love that. I kind of feel like, yes, people are creating so much material that there's not enough people to fill the jobs. That's so exciting to me. So yeah, I think that the people who are benefiting are the makers.
Well, I have you here. Who do you think are the ultimate winners? Would it be the studios, the consumers, or the filmmakers?
The consumers.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because, well, here's the bright side is that you're making what you want the way you want to, but everybody's still under the money crunch of being able to make the content, and that's very real. And at any level, you're going to feel the crunch. I was just listening to an NPR piece about how they're making Game of Thrones, and the two directors that flip between the episodes are like, I thought going into this I'd feel like a film and I'd have all this time. No, we're still making a TV show, and you have a very a very limited amount of time and a very specific budget. And so you will always feel the crunch. It's about working with what you have. But, and the smaller the platform, the smaller the amount of money, et cetera, et cetera. So I would say it's the consumer. You know, you sit in front of your computer, you know, have your phone in your pocket right now, you turn on your television, your screen can give you so much good content, anything you want. And, but people are struggling on both sides of it to try and make it for you, you know. That's the real deal of it. But whatever, art is always a struggle, but being a creator is filled with joy every day. So it's, you know, it's both.
Just to chime in and add on to that, you know, one thing that I think this whole new media world has created is it's created a world of instant gratification, yes, like you said. So anybody who wants to see anything at any given moment can find it and can have access to it, which is great for the consumer. On the flip side, for the creator, I think one of the great things that all of these different outlets have provided, whether we're talking about productions, publishing, whatever, is being able to do things on your own terms and having creative control over your project. And we've all been in the business long enough where we all know what it's like sometimes dealing with studio executives, dealing with script notes, and working with people who aren't either as passionate or intelligent when it comes to what you are making, and knowing especially the underlining IP and what you're adapting. And that creative control is so important, because when you're working on something that either you've created that you're so passionate about, or you're adapting something that's been around for, say, 75 years, you want to be able to protect that with everything that you have. And sometimes it's more important to go the lower budget, less seen route in order to make what you know is the right way to make that content.
Example, who watches Louis? Right?
Absolutely.
That is a show that he makes for like 2 pennies. And you can tell, but that's what makes it fantastic, because he's looking at life in a very specific way. The biggest thing that I can say to everybody who's in this room is learn how to make things for nothing, and learn how to make good things for nothing. If you can crack that code within yourself, you will be good for the rest of your life.
It's really interesting that the one thing that new media has done is it's closed the feedback loop to the filmmakers. You know sooner in the process whether what you've done is appealing to other people or not. And I used to see this a lot, where filmmakers would live in their own heads and justify, you know, how they were telling their story with their own internal story. But this new era closes the feedback loop of whether you're getting that across to your audience or not. And if you're not getting it across to your audience, then evolve or die. Learn to tell your story efficiently outside of your own head, or you know, you won't succeed.
Evolve or die. Dang.
David, who do you think the winners are? The studios, consumers, or filmmakers? Because of this.
Who do I think the winners are?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm kind of selfish. I think it's me.
Okay. And you're all three, kind of.
Winner.
Great.
All right.
If I may quote Charlie Sheen.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next, which is, what do you think is next? What do you think the future holds for the consumer? And I'd also like to ask, what is your favorite platform for a person who's just getting in the business or is trying to break in the business to put their stuff like YouTube or whatever? What is your favorite platform that you would recommend? And we'll start with you, David Stump.
I see a lot of kids making great use of Vimeo to tell stories. I'm a huge fan of YouTube, but it's kind of a sight gag channel. You can see one thing, get one laugh, a one-hit wonder. You can see lots of people's cat videos, and you can see all plane crashes and a mountain of media, but I think Vimeo is really probably more attuned to storytellers and people who are trying to get across ideas and concepts rather than sight gags.
Interesting, because last year when that same question was asked at panel here, all three panelists said that. So
Same thing.
Interesting that a year later it's still the at least the preferred by you. David, going to chime in on what's next and what your favorite platform is?
I don't really have a favorite platform. I think there are tons of great new media, transmedia platforms out there. I think one of the things that excites me the most right now are folks like Kickstarter, and crowdsourcing, crowdfunding. I think that stuff is just so amazing because, again, it bridges consumer and creator together so they feel like they are a part of this process together. You can get great stuff done by doing it that way. And again, this is not just for film and television. This is for everything under the sun. I think that is a wonderful opportunity that has come out of the last couple years that I am very excited to see how far that really goes. The other thing, too, is, I work with a lot of the official YouTube channels out there. So you have folks like, for instance, Russell Simmons, who has All Def Digital. You have folks like Justin Lin, who has Yum Yum F, which is the biggest Asian American YouTube channel. And these channels, these companies are constantly looking for new material from independent creators, up-and-coming stars in our industry. And I love trolling those sites because some of their content, and again, it could be just like fan videos, it could be all sorts of stuff, but you're seeing some of that content get 6 million, 8 million, 12 million, 17 million, 22 million views. Where in traditional television, if you are breaking, 1.5, 2 million views, then you're considered to have a success in your hands somewhat. And I love that reach. I love that international, global reach that new media provides. We're no longer in a business where we're just talking about a domestic marketplace. And if you know how to create good content, whether it's on a dime or however you're doing it, if you have the marketing tools necessary, because everybody has to be a promoter and be a really good self-promoter to make it in this business. If you have those tools, then the world is really at your fingertips. And again, that's why this excites me. I've seen Kickstarter campaigns where they're looking to raise, 15 grand, and then all of a sudden they've raised 200,000. And more. So that stuff excites me. Those opportunities that we've never had before, that's what's really cool right now to me.
And Janina, what do you think is next?
I agree. Because then it's like the public has spoken, it's great. There is no, there's less people to answer to then, and it really does bridge the gap. And you're right. It is very exciting now that we have these platforms where people can lend any part of themselves that they can to help fund the project that you really want to make and that they really want to have in their lives. Platform that I like, I don't really have one either. I just did this, PBS just did this very cool thing with a bunch of auteurs, and they gave them a little bit of funding to do short films about, it was called Future States. You can go see it at futurestates.tv, I believe. And they built this huge big site, and it's very fancy if you go to it. But guess what? The demographic they want to reach is teenagers. So the link they gave me to service to everyone was a link that didn't work on mobile and didn't take me or anyone to the actual film. And I was like, I was so angry. And then I finally, because I travel all the time and I live on planes, as we were saying, I couldn't even get the desktop version to load on the plane, and it took me 5 days since it launched to finally get to it, and went, oh, somebody made a really cool opening. It's awesome. No one's gonna see it. So Vimeo's great, because the mobile works really well. But I think that if you're looking for numbers, you got to use YouTube. Another reason is because the card, a Twitter card, okay, how do I explain this? A Twitter card is when you have a link and the actual content is serviced right there in the tweet. It's a Twitter card. Vimeo doesn't work like that yet. So if I'm a creator and I did this music video and I actually made it more for film festivals than I did for the internet. But you better believe when I put it on the internet, I put it on YouTube because I need people to be able to share it with each other. So it's a funny thing. Again, all these things are going to change, and we all have
We'll
to
be here tomorrow, I guess.
Yeah. We all have to evolve or die. Yeah, I don't really have I can't claim a platform that I love because,
I'd just like to add one other thing. In terms of a great platform that's out there, and again, this is for the people who are already established in the business, less for the independent creator. But we, at Comic-Con in July, we're going to be announcing our new series and film with Amazon Studios. And I can't say anything about it now, but what I can say though is that in the next couple of years, in my humble opinion, Amazon and Google are going to rule the world.
Yeah.
And with what they are doing with their technology and their devices and how they are building in the Amazon Studios programming into that, they have a better shot than most with pushing content better than any, I think, of the established studios out there. And, we do spend, a lot of us spend most of our time traveling the world and on planes. And just as a little example, which I always keep close to the heart because it just shows me the power of somebody like an Amazon or a Google. Last year, I spent most of the summer in Africa. And I was in some very rural places like Rwanda and Uganda and all over. And Google and Amazon have already broken into Africa. And because in some of these rural areas, everybody still has a smartphone. Everybody still has a device. Everybody knows who Google is and what Amazon is. And even seeing it now early on, you could tell that in 3 years from now, 5 years from now, as technology continues to evolve, as it finds its way into the hands of really everybody in this entire planet, those folks like Amazon Studios and their distribution network are going to be more powerful than most of the bigger boys out there. So I love.
And by bigger boys, who do you mean? Do you mean network television?
The established studios out there that have their traditional domestic, international distribution outlets and pipelines. That are already established. They're old school. They're set in their ways for the most part. But this new crop of new media studios like Amazon, I think, are going to change the landscape of our industry.
That's absolutely right. Because let's think about this for a second. So you are a studio and you have a pilot and you just had a network pick it up. And now you have a show on NBC. So now, as a studio, you get to sell that content to Italy, to so you get to do the international thing, but there's so much less friction if you're Amazon Studios who says, we believe in this and we're going to go, ha, the whole world has it immediately. Game changer.
Yep.
Planet changer.
Yep.
One of the things that we haven't talked about was Netflix. Netflix has kind of changed the world when they've decided that they're going to make their own movies. And they're going to release all of the episodes all at once, so you can watch them in a day or you can watch them over a period of 10 years. What does this mean, if at all, to us filmmakers that might want to get attached to something that pays well, like any other television studio?
Well, they're not paying their actors that well. That's what we're finding out right now. But it's
still actors' union. They're getting work and they're out there.
It's a different contract than what you think it is, but.
And also, Netflix,
completely different.
And Netflix, listen, they're figuring themselves out. They are on a hot streak right now, but they even though I love Netflix and I love the team that's over there and I know those folks well, but they resemble a traditional network more than people realize. They look for the established showrunners and the established talent and the A-list director or A-list talent that they know that they can, make bank off of. And so it's harder getting, it's hard getting traction anywhere with any of these established entities, but they, in my humble opinion, are less willing to take a chance on an up-and-coming rising star than a lot of these other outlets that we discussed are. So while they're great and I love their content, in the last week, my wife and I pretty much haven't left our apartment until we're done with Orange is the New Black, the new season. I think that there are other great opportunities to explore and to think about as an independent creator, rather than the folks out there like Netflix.
I have a question about Netflix. Maybe you guys know the answer to this. Example, I was just working in Toronto the other day, and I wanted to finish, name one, Hemlock Grove. And I was like, what do you mean I can't watch Netflix? The border's right there. I couldn't. I was like, how do I hack into my computer and make it think that it's in the States? I was really I having a panic attack. So how are they selling their show? Are they servicing their shows to different international areas? Do you know that?
Before we answer that, hey guys that are waiting out there, have a seat. Come on in. Look, I have this whole front X section, and I have one person, two people there. So relax, and we're going to do some Q&A in a bit. So, David.
There are interesting laws and regulations internationally that preclude certain kinds of business practices, at least without an evolution in those business practices. And Netflix are very successful at what they do, but they're also pretty well known for elbowing business people around and making their own rules and ignoring everyone else's rules. And when governments get involved in that, and when the FCC and the Canadian Communications Commission differ in policies about how these business models work, then it disables these corporations from crossing international borders. So the business model doesn't work everywhere. And it's really interesting to watch how different governments react to different business practices. Here in the U.S., we're very laissez-faire. You can do almost anything you want as a corporation. That's not true everywhere else in the world.
Just to chime in there is a wonderful company out there that I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with, Crackle, which is owned by Sony. And Crackle's a great company. They got a lot of great guys over there. And the way that they work is they work hand in hand with Sony's international television division. So anything that is made for digital here for Crackle is packaged and sold internationally as a traditional television show or a feature film put together as a 90-minute feature film or something along those lines. So they're always thinking about how to sell to the international marketplace, even though here in the U.S. it's specifically a digital play. And they're doing some good stuff, and their budgets are getting bigger and bigger. And so again, it's kind of a hybrid version that Sony's on that you see some folks doing out there, which is really appealing because Crackle is a rising star here. You look at like Jerry Seinfeld's show on Crackle, which is great, comedians in cars. They're doing some good stuff, and they're making some good content. And again, because they are a studio and have those international pipelines already locked in and tied up, it's really smart to find a project to work with somebody like that.
I think one of the most interesting things that's going to happen in the next 2 or 3 years is that there's a big chunk of the world that was never wired with copper for communication. A huge hunk of the world was never strung with telephone lines, let alone cable lines. And wireless communication obviates the need for copper. So iPads and iPhones and mobile phones and all of those platforms, when they start getting cell towers all over China and all over India finally and all over Africa and all over the remote stretches of the world, they're going to instantly be markets for media that haven't been there in the entire history of media. I mean, it's just, it's going to be, in 2 to 3 years, it's going to be a huge change.
As an interesting story, which I just find crazy, I was a little bit ago, I was talking about Africa. In some of these rural areas of Africa, Google actually has blimps that they have purchased with giant Wi-Fi machines on them that troll rural areas of certain African countries where nobody has access to internet or it's extremely costly, but when they know that these blimps are coming over at a specific time during the day, however many days a week, it is literally like watching everybody frozen in time. They stop what they're doing, everybody takes out their phones because they have access.
Wow.
And again, like you start to look at those things that these companies are doing, and you could tell that in 5 years from now, they're going to be so established that, again, they're going to be at the forefront of everything.
So what have we learned today? Think with a global perspective. Open your eyes, be part of the world.
And push your content.
Yeah, it's a way, just know that you're not making it for your neighbor, You're making it for people you'll never meet. The other thing is Maker, Full Screen. They're not studios. Do you guys know? Raise your hand if you've heard of Maker or Full Screen. Okay, so like half. These are not studios, but they're, how do I explain them? Channel supporters, right? So right now, what is exciting is if you are a content creator and you have a YouTube channel, there are businesses who are looking for up-and-coming people who are making great content and deserve to be supported. So they will help push your channel. They will help you grow. So I guess, but the way to even have that happen is to not just reach out to them, but to make great shit. Just make the best shit you possibly can and put it out there and make it the way you want to. And if you just continue to do that and keep making stuff. You can't just make one. You got to make, get better. You can take the stuff down you didn't like from last year, but just keep making stuff. Someone's going to notice you. There are enough people out there they're looking for good shit. Just make good shit. That's what I
But you got to promote yourself.
You have to promote yourself. You
have
do.
to know how to market yourself.
Yes, but one of the ways to do that is to just have a lot of content that's good. I mean, again, Full Screen Make. If I'm them and I find someone who's amazing, but they have 2 videos, I can't do anything with that. I need somebody who has a consistent output. So really, I mean, and the more you make, the more you yourself will want people to see it, and it all leads to each other, and it's all just helpful to itself. It's like an amoeba, a growing amoeba. Just make a lot of good stuff and continue to do it. And think globally.
David Stump, you want to chime in on this a little bit?
One of the things that I've started to do in the last few years is teach at film schools. And I've actually written a book to that end. But one of the best questions I ever got from a student was how do I become a filmmaker? And I thought about it for a minute, and I told him, I don't think you ever become anything. You're either being that or you're not. So are you making a film right now? If you're making a film right now, you're a filmmaker. If you're not making a film right now, or you're not about to start a film right now, you're not a filmmaker. So just keep making your films, and that makes you a filmmaker.
Well, let's talk about that for a second. With the media that's available, from inexpensive cameras to cell phone cameras to whatever else we have to make whatever content we can for the price that we're doing, it's not just being a shooter and storyteller and a editor and click, it's on the internet. We need to do more. we need to be producers, and most people don't know what it takes to be a producer, and sometimes it's a long road because you have to find the financing, and you have to find the right audience, and you have to target the audience, and you have to know how to do that, and you know, all the things that a producer has to do. And I'm just wondering at what level, and we'll start with David, if you would give me an example of what you think us fine filmmakers should be doing right now as producers and not just filmmakers.
So my mom always had this great line, and she always said that the line between being a great producer and a great used car salesman is like this. And you need to be an amazing evangelist for yourself, an amazing promoter. We've already talked about this, knowing how to market, knowing how to get yourself out there. The advice that I give, especially to the youth out there that is just trying to break in, is get in front of as many people as you can. There are so many events, not only globally, but just in this country, and not only in this country, just in Southern California, in our surrounding area, where you can meet so many great people, whether they can help you now or help you in the future. It's all about building that Rolodex. That's really what being a producer is all about. You know, and whether it is coming to events like the New Media Film Festival, whether it's going to events like Comic-Con, whether it's going to events like the International Licensing Expo in Las Vegas, whether it's going to publishing shows like BEA or Digital Book World, all of these different events will, A, give you information and tools that maybe you weren't aware of. B, it will introduce you to a network of people that will help you for the remaining, for the rest of your career. So get out there. Be active. Don't just shoot something and expect it to be picked up and to be turned into the next global tentpole franchise. You need to be a hustler. Your job, your day-to-day job needs to be getting out there and hustling and meeting as many people. And if you do that, if you make that the priority, then you will see success. You will, but that just has to be your goal. And unfortunately, not too many people understand that and take advantage of it. And those that do, I've only seen great stuff come out of it.
The more holistic version of that is help others. We are all in this together. Get out there and hustle. And also in hustling, join other people's projects, learn, study, support. Build a community around you. Find talented people who you would be lucky to work with one day. Like, this man has made some of the most beautiful visuals that you will ever see. I have no business calling him to be like, hey, do you want to work on my new music video? Like, I'm not going to call you, dude, you know? Well, it's nice of you, but I would feel comfortable doing that if I helped you in whatever you were doing over and over and over again until we were part of something that was the same. Then I would feel, you know, I just feel like we really are in this together. And you know how they say it's all who you know? The real thing behind that is, if you've made it, don't you want to work with the people that you love, that you came up with, that you've spent your formative years with? Absolutely. When I'm making something, I'm calling my people, you know? I call my tribe, whoever they are. Like, I call those people. It's less who you know and more who you have made something great with. So in hustling, do that.
Also look into the guilds.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a member of the PGA, and the amount of people that I've just met through socializing through the PGA has been amazing. I hear the same thing from all my friends who are in the WGA or the DGA, and you can get in there through the new media departments. It's amazing because it brings you together with the best of the best right here in LA. So you have people who are just starting, you have the people who have been established for the last 50 years, and everybody is just hobnobbing over drinks or going to see a screening every now and then. And I suggest that to anybody who can. Take advantage of the gills, especially here in Los Angeles or New York or really any major media city in this country.
If you live in Southern California, you have no excuse.
All right. So I think we've answered a handful of things here. What's next? We've answered. And how do you get your story out there? I think we've pretty much covered that as best as we can. I want to share with you a story. About 8 years ago, maybe 10 years ago, I was producing the South Pacific World Music Festival in Fiji. I was on Savu Savu, Fiji, at these luxury resorts doing this for 2 weeks. And I was interviewed, and the first thing they asked me a couple of things, and then I started talking about television and how this out, and they go, do you realize that we've only had television for 2 years on this island? Imagine the content of everything from I Dream of Jeannie to, I mean, just think of everything that they haven't seen.
Oh, they're
going
to
to
be binge watching Gilligan's Island for years.
Resurface it there. And anyway, when you're talking about how excited they were to see a film group, and they even have their own television group that had the oldest equipment I've ever had, 4 different cameras, and none of them matched. Oh. And we're trying to do a live event. Anyway, when you were talking about going around the world and seeing that, no more copper, we have ways of doing this, and that the content can now be seen literally everywhere by this universal world. I think you should take that to heart. Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Yeah. I'm a moderator, not part of the panel. So let's go ahead and ask a couple of things. Is there anyone that has some questions out there that we can touch base on? And if you can, go ahead. Talk as loud as you can, please. The question basically is NATO, what is it, the National Association of Theaters?
Theater owners.
The theater owners.
That's really not a question about NATO. That's a question about the big studios' power over NATO. And you and I couldn't walk in and get our movies seen on this screen in the same context that the major studios can get their movies seen on this screen. Because when 6 p.m. rolls around, these screens are, for all intents and purposes, owned by the major studios. And what they say goes. So it's...
So are you saying that we would need to see studios... Sorry. So are you saying that we'd need to see studios, the power shift between independent makers and studios change drastically? You think
it will be a seismic shift if you see that.
I mean, even Amazon Studios needs Warner Brothers to distribute their films. They can't do it themselves. But I just personally, and again, this is just my opinion, I just continually see the shrinking of these. And I don't think that there's going to be a time where we're going to see YouTube content like that up on these, because they're really made for the individual consumer and experience for the most part.
I watch YouTube on my 60-inch LED in my. I mean, I see that. I mean, that's happening already. It's not that it's it's going to happen. I think that, I think that that's where your internet connection to your television will be the next step, which is now anyway.
I've been speaking to a couple of my friends who are working in China right now, and Chinese kids refer to themselves as coat hangers until they're out working in the, and when they are out working in the general populace and starting to earn their way and make money, they spend their money on, especially in the big cities, on a nice outfit to wear on Friday night or Saturday night or whatever night they go out, and they go to a movie, and they go as a social experience with all of the other kids, and you might spend half a week's pay to go to the movie on Friday night, but you do it to go, and I have this on good report, everywhere you go, the cinema is the social experience of the week in China. Dress up, meet all your friends, go to the movies, and that is the experience of the week for young Chinese kids. And they're watching American movies, they're watching 3D movies, they're watching the biggest spectacles they can get their hands on, and they're doing it as a social environment.
So one thing that you're forgetting is that social media has connected all of us, and that these experiences, even though they are not, you're not hearing the person next to you laugh, you are experiencing everything with the person that you're, you know, like their conversations, the chat logs, etc. Right? What was that? Oh, no, feel free, say it. I think some people actually have. But I mean, even multi-camera comedies are sort of dying. By that I mean like the laugh track comedy, you know. So maybe we will go. They might be
dying because they're not funny too.
They might be dying because they're not funny. But then let's think about that. Like if the writers of tomorrow are the kids of today that are watching these things on the toilet, are they going to know how to write for people who are sitting in the audience? They might not. So maybe I don't know. I mean, the evolution. I don't think I have an answer to that. I don't think that YouTube is going to be playing right here, though. I don't. No.
Not in the foreseeable future.
Not in the foreseeable future, no.
My, whether this answers a question or not, so, you know, I find, I'm getting ready to leave for China for a month, and we have some films that we're doing over there as co-productions with other countries. And, you know, that marketplace is really interesting to me. That Southeast Asia, places where you have massive population growth, massive growth in consumers for media, but also dealing with issues like censorship and government control. And as an example in China, and again, this just an interesting example. So, you know, some of their biggest TV shows over there that they consume are American TV shows, and they love Vampire Diaries. They love Arrow, and you know.
I'm huge in Japan. China, I'm huge in China.
But you know, U.S. stars, especially in TV, have the ability to become sensations out in that part of the world when they don't have that kind of popularity here, and I find that really intriguing. You know, we're helping put together these kind of Comic-Con pulp culture conventions in Asia and around the world, especially in Asia and the Middle East, and their desire for U.S. content is massive because everybody loves seeing what we're up to here because we always are on the forefront, whether it's of culture or media, blah, 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 blah. You know, I work hand in hand with the company Archie, which most of you probably...
The Archie comic book
The Archie
series.
comic books. And if you guys, this is just, again, another interesting example, people would flip out if they knew how many issues of Archie sells overseas, specifically in India. India, they make more money selling Archie in India than they do with the combined numbers of every other territory in the world.
That's really ironic that you say that, because the only time I ever read Archie was when I was visiting family in India.
There you go. Because they look at Archie comic books and they think that that is what life is like in the
America.
US,
Oh, no.
in America, in like middle America. And they want that. And they love consuming that type of content.
Wow.
So I've seen, in Asia and China, groups of people getting together to watch shows like Vampire Diaries because they don't have access to that content, or a lot of them don't, so they have to find hubs for it. So in those areas, I think it's going to be very interesting to see how they continue to evolve.
And that's communal. They are kind of good.
They are.
That's communal.
And like it's the same thing in Africa, that they don't have, access to a lot of this stuff, but they are all crowding around the television for like the one person who has it to watch those shows.
But
and
that's also, speaking of the communal experience, that's what kids in America are doing also. I mean, everybody's sharing and talking about the new YouTube video. Have you watched this? Have you watched this? And every time I see the teenagers that I have in my life, they're all crowded around somebody's device or computer, which is a device, and experiencing that short form thing together. Mm-hmm. Yeah, true.
Any other questions? Please.
Having just written a book, I think I can probably field this one pretty well. I just wrote a book for Focal Press called Digital Cinematography.
Congratulations, by the way. That's
Thank you. And it was gigantic. And what I'm discovering, what I'm learning from it, is that the people who buy the e-version of my book are a different demographic entirely than the people who buy the paper version of my book.
What are they? What's the difference?
The people who buy the e-version are really very fast moving. They're I don't know how to put it really, because I never thought about it enough to quantify it, but they're more portable people.
Multitaskers?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Here, give myself a shameless plug here.
Do it. Get it. Tell us. Share.
Getting a close-up on this? This is our opportunity.
Digital cinematography, fundamentals, tools, techniques, and workflows. David Stump.
Thank you very much.
Can we buy them in the lobby, and will you sign up for us?
I will sign them gladly for anyone who buys, but I don't think they're on sale here. But you can get it at Amazon.
That's awesome.
And it's not one of the books that Jeff Bezos is making hard to buy.
That's great. So as a person who has made something that you can buy physically and digitally, which is selling more for you?
By far the paper copies.
Talk in the mic.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead. By far the paper copies.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
It's hard to say. I think the tradition of a substantial, solid paper book is pretty hard to overcome, especially for the audience for my book, because it's a pretty substantial work. It's
more of a textbook.
Yeah, it's really a textbook. So you're going to want to
use it as a reference.
Yeah, and you're going
to
want to underline it, and circles and arrows and folded corners. I think people are going to probably wear it to death.
Here are my quick points on ebooks and publishing, because I spend most of my life in the publishing space, even though we're out producing. But my family has a multi-generational background in publishing. I work very closely now with a company called Blurb, which is one of the largest self-publishing companies in the world. Here's my opinion. So number one is, in a day and age now where physical publishing companies, the big international publishing companies, they're doing two things right now. Number one is you aren't getting advances on books like you used to be decades ago or even 5 years ago. That has pretty much gone the way of the dodo for the most part. Number two is that those mainstream publishing companies are now acting like studios are more and more, where they require at least a good chunk of your rights for that book. So media rights across the board. They want to be your partner and want to have input in whatever happens to your book after the fact. The e-book space, I think, is a really intriguing space because you could do one thing, and when I say ebooks, I'm also including self-publishing in there. Number one is you can retain all of your rights. So you can actually have the ability now to publish your own content, control everything creatively and rights-wise across the board, and you are in complete control. Number two is when you are packaging content in this business, nobody asks now, you know, oh, you want to turn this comic book into a movie, what were last month's sales of that comic book? Nobody really asks those questions anymore. What they ask now is how is your book being distributed? They want to know the digital footprint of your book. So if you walk into a meeting or trying to package content and you say, oh, well, this book is available on Amazon, and this book is available in the iBookstore, and this book is available on Nook, and this book is available overseas on Kobo and on Copia and all these international devices, that is starting to make a lot more sense to people in our business, especially when you're trying to adapt content. So, you know, if you're more focused on the future of your book, where it can go, if it can be adapted, if you're more focused on retaining your rights and having control over your book, then self-publishing, the ebook space is definitely a way to go. If you're already an established talent, if you're already Stephen King or somebody of that caliber, then yeah, you're going to want to continue what you're doing, although a lot of these bigger creators are now going the self-publishing route themselves because they're making more money, they have to give up less. You know, they have, again, all of the rights. They're all tied up. And to the bigger agencies out there like CAA and WME that represents myself and other folks, that's what they care about. They care about that your book is under your control 100%. They don't have to deal with these other partnerships and these people sticking their nose into things. They're free and clear to do what they want. And that is very, very appealing in the marketplace today. And again, then the conversation goes into self-promoting and all that stuff, which you have to do. But that's where I see the opportunities in the ebook space and in the publishing space.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like, once again, Janina Gavankar, David Stump, and David Uslan. It's 12 o'clock, and we're pretty much wrapped here.
Awesome.
Thank you very much for coming down and being a part of this.